Oh, Shirley here, and this is Sirius Talis Moon. We are with July Astrology, and it's Jupiter our Mars Day. Although Jupiter will already be in Leo, and the 30th of June, Jupiter ingresses into Leo. I'm here at the Ben Gurion Airport. It has been a while since I visited here, having my matcha by Landver. No, I do not get dividends for that. It's just, and watching some airplanes. Um, so yeah, I love, love, love. One of the best ways to practice astrology for people who cannot do traveling abroad is definitely to put ourselves in different locations because different locations prompt different houses. The airport would be the ninth house, an enclosed space would be the 12th house, the living room would be the seventh house, and ninth house is great for teachings. So I believe that teaching and traveling go together. And even though I can't always afford to travel, let's say, the world, I love to put myself where I can activate those relevant houses. And without further ado, let's go to July astrology. So right now the ascendant is 12 degrees Gemini, midheaven on Deneb Algedi. A lot of thoughts, a lot of contemplations from this vantage point, even both on a global scale where people are usually coming from lineages that have training. And one of the things that um, when we want to reduce basically trauma to people or to children, when we talk about abolition of the practice of ritual abuse, what are we actually talking about? We're talking about abolition of slavery, and at the same time being aware that the international arena, so much as new countries that we're probably already going to have, we already have Somaliland at this point, we're probably going to have booming of new countries. And when we talk about the behind the scenes of a new country, because the minute I started talking about astrological considerations for declarations of independence, um, I was introduced to a lot of charts of leaders and to a lot of energies. So there are behind the scenes simulations, there are behind the scenes um, discussions in energy that could be simulations and could be not. Um, there is a lot that goes into that. One of the reasons I started watching people like Annika Lucas um, is to be informed of what needs to change, and this goes to the international arena. Well, when we think about international traveling, we think about the risks that could be, whether it's intercultural, the different rituals that people do. Um, okay, and I have encountered that. Okay, um, it's somewhere finding the sweet spot between understanding that the world has many risks, and even when we delegalize something, it would be practiced in secret, and an actual change towards the world that we do want to see. Um, so I think the midheaven on Danab Algedi and this onset is a good point to think about it, and even in the world of astrology, where there are particularly with Saturn in Aries, there could be attempts to restrict or regulate what can one do. And that can also be in terms of vocation. Um, and so, while I absolutely do not, how should I say that? Well, I absolutely do not rule out the fact that practice is important. Aries is about self-studies, and as we're going to be wrapping up with Chiron in Aries and beginning with Neptune, I can definitely say that even when it comes to the practice of astrology, um, there even when we just watch the internet, there definitely are interactions, power struggles as well. Um, there definitely are things that I said, well, astrological magic is way too difficult, and then I was almost forcefully coming to actually practice astrological magic. And there are many things behind that, which is why I openly talk about projects like MK often, classified projects, because probably I do have colleagues that do those things, and when we talk about abolition of economical hitmanship, we're already talking about a certain interface. Um, and this is where regulation of a certain field can actually perpetuate the phenomena that we don't want. Um, one of the reasons that I was openly able to look at charts and even really called to look at charts had to do with the fact that I wasn't that I cannot say I'm self-studied in the sense that nobody taught me that. I can say that there is a certain amount of sovereignty, that I did not go through the route of a certification, because I went to astrology through the academia and taking a break from academia, um, and there was something to do with the way that the sexual energy is practiced within the circles like Bilderberg and Belsen, I call it, but it's Bilderberg Group, um, oil companies, royalties, leadership, and that was something that I find as a point of interference. Definitely, when we want to yield true cohesion, true science, um, and particularly relevant to the age of air, where astrology becomes an openly practiced science. And a lot of people have a lot of interest, a lot of, I'm not even saying agendas, because agendas are very, okay, as reference to Bellanova, Maria Antoinetta Bellanova, and she talks about there are no enemies, there are only roles. And there are many roles. And so for me, I think that abolition of slavery is done hand in hand with practicing tantric embodied awareness within the self, because we replace what we don't want with what we do want, or we make place for what we do want. And I think that this is a good mindset to practice. It brings a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities on a global scale, and also when it comes to the field of astrology. Whenever we have tradition, we have the people that are going to say, I studied, I practiced, I sacrificed, I was astrologizing for my life for several years, okay, and tending to political assassination prevention. Something sparked that tending to, um, and within that point, I think that all of those regulation discussions, while they don't come without merit, definitely there are mistakes that people can do that could be quite, that it would be good to have somebody that would prevent that mistake. And then there are things that we need the rebelliousness, or that we need the innovative science to do. Um, and this is important, and this is important, and there's always that tension between innovation, scientific revolution, and tradition. I can say that I have in my life many times dedicated, put in a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort into something, and then I had to refine, reform, or even completely change direction. I did not abandon. Okay, those dedications are not abandoned, but they're definitely changed and reformed. Um, in Jupiter Point of Talus on Beechwood, I addressed the courtesan-cartisan division, the Hellenist sect tradition, Golden Ages, and the upcoming times where astrology will be different, and we cannot have an evolution from the. Well, I'm a great advocate of knowing the convention to break the convention. I'm also a great advocate of not having to be in trafficking rings to have a certification of anything, and I'm saying that as a person who comes from academia, where people, men and women, were persecuted when they said no to ritual abuse, sacrifice, and I met that as well in segments of the astrological community. Again, God of Aries is about abolishing act of rape and not about sacrifice or bloodletting rituals to God Aries, as many other people see it. And from that vantage point, let's talk about the month of July. So Jupiter will already be in Leo. Jupiter Leo emphasizes the big performer, the big leader. It takes everything and magnifies it. So if Jupiter in Cancer is the people, mothering, nourishment, food, treatment to cancer, relational patterns, beliefs, systems regarding our, secure attachment, and so on and so forth. Jupiter in Leo is the radiant shine, the confidence, leadership, leadership as performance, okay, and leadership as authentic expression. And this is why we see media, entertainment, leadership, and even what we used to call celebrity culture is such a Leo thing. But all of this magnification opposes Pluto, and so everything that is already happening, okay, and I call everything going through Leo has a Me Too effect, because Leo is about the open, vulnerable heart, and anything that negates us being open, vulnerable, expressive, radiant, confident, and appreciated for who we are, basically is coming to be released. And this is where whatever negates it in society. So if patriarchy itself have molded the leader, the father, the patriarch, okay, because we have been missing Mary Magdalene for a while, or we have been missing the princess, or we have been missing the queen. We have had the king, but we have been missing the queen, and this would be the time where queens and princesses would divorce by a meme on social media with their fellow monarchies. Okay, so very exciting. It can absolutely go to yellow pages, but there is something very essentially regarding being open, vulnerable, wearing our heart on our sleeve, and whatever negates that is coming to be released. And at the same time, Pluto opposing Leo is holding accountable the malefic expressions of Leo. So one could say that the only reason certain monarchies are standing to jurisdiction for, let's say, rape or sexual abuse is because the, how should I say that, collecting debt from the monarchy is done by bringing them to litigation. However, and we can also associate the abolition of usury to to the same, okay, to the same times, and this is also regarding the separation of the possible divorce of the Judeo-Christian traditions, because the Judeo part was the usury part, and the Christian was the benefactor of usury. But when the Christian have to pay the debt, then this is a time where abolition of usury happens around this time. Also, we had the independence of the United States, the French Revolution. Israel will have its first Uranus return in the coming 7 years. Many demonstrations, they have spilled milk somewhere, as the milk industry demonstrating. So, yeah, I mean, it's everything. So Jupiter Leo is going to take a Me Too on asteroids. We're going to have big, showy, and extravagant people, leaders, events, and the possibility of being held accountable. And so this is where we don't want to deny the open-heartedness of Leo, but we definitely are going to be very likely holding accountable the actions of the monarchy, or what do kings do for fun? What do media tycoons do for fun? And this is something that we're going to be looking at, even when it comes to animal rights. Okay, think about although Venus is close, Jupiter is beliefs. Jupiter is philosophy, but Jupiter is also doing it way big. And we are going to be criticizing extravagance, which can be good thing and can be bad thing. Okay, I love drinking my matcha by the airport and traveling to record this podcast. I think there is an added value to that, and yet in some traditions or cultures that would be considered in itself extravagance or luxury. And yet when we come to enforce those things, then the discussions will be made. And this goes to even the regulation of certain fields. If let's say tomorrow they decide only so and so person with such certification can do astrology, many people will begin to speak, but they will not begin to speak about, oh, I'm going to go legal, or how much experience I have. They're going to say, wait a second. The reason I did not pursue the certification is because that's affiliated with MK Often, is affiliated with Epstein, affiliated with Peter Rings. And there are going to be Googleplex people saying that. They're saying, wait a second, that's the thing that between me and doing a certification, here is what stands. And how that affects the sciences. If Artemis became the goddess of the hunt in Hellenistic tradition because men discovered that they can have babies and started to rape instead of worshipping the fertility goddess, that was Diana, then we suddenly had night sects and day sects. Okay? It's kind of like, okay, then that affects the astrology that we are doing. What if the lots are curses? Concrete event astrology. What if concrete event astrology is a list of curses? Popping a lot of questions, and it brings in a scientific revolution. It brings in awareness. Uranus is the liberator of life energy, and that is that is something that is even exciting to discuss because it opens a lot of opportunities that we didn't make the connection between before. Um, when it comes to world events, then both the Saturn in Aries is going to already be reaching 14 degrees and going retrograde in July 26th, um, just after Mercury turns direct in Cancer at 16 degrees Cancer. Um, those attempts to limit what can one do are going to stir up a lot of desire to hold accountable the very people that prevent us to go out and make a certification. I made certification in aromatherapy. It was stolen 3 times when I was escaping trafficking rings. That I wasn't. It's not like I was affiliated with trafficking rings. It's that my doing for my career and going through the route required a certain rite of passage so that I will be able to have a business. And nobody bothers to tell, but they definitely try to traffic or try to. They would call it initiate. They would call it rite of passage. They would call it going through, the tried and true, or doing things traditionally, or make or and um, and this is something that is going to be discussed on a large scale with the entire Saturn Aries. Jupiter Leo is going to be what the big issues that are exposed. Okay. um, Now Neptune is going to go retrograde degree 4. July 7, Neptune goes retrograde degree 4. July 4th, Mars conjoins Uranus in Sedna. And this is opening a synodic cycle. Mars Uranus is a great real estate liberator. Okay, I had several Mars Uranus conjunctions with astrology colleague, with and a composite with Mark Rutte as well, um, and I had another one, and all of those Mars Uranus hard aspects, they spark up the core of the issue regarding real estate, regarding sexuality, regarding funding of revolutions, regarding the way we do science, the way we do astrology, okay, the way we do Uranus. Um, and definitely I became informed that the ritual abuse are basically enslavement. Even the fact that, nobody would want, how should I say that? Nobody would want me to work for them unless they want my energy. I'm not going to tell who actually literally told me that. Um, and also, how do they conserve energy? Okay, the energy transmutation. There are many things that those who are erotically intelligent can see when they see actually business meetings. Okay, that things are possible to see. Not gonna name names because people are gonna get embarrassed, and it's not something people usually talk about in the open. Um, but those things definitely exist. All routes of influence are basically used when it comes to international diplomacy and politics, um, which is why, better sex for better world. If the sex is sovereign, aligned, not siphoning or being siphoned, and not trafficking, then the politics is better and and the business is better, um, and so and it is the truth that and what causes us to try to control, and the more power and resources people have, the more they use when they run into the need to be in control, and of course worldly affairs that spark that the most, um, the more aligned we are, the less need we have to control others. Okay, a free person is not oppress another, and that's just something to keep in mind, particularly in Gemini, because it's going to be in the sign of civil war clock. By the way, I was traveling by train, and an Israeli couple next to me. First of all, the husband believed that all the people traveling are LGBTQ, that are disconnected with the nation and whatever religious, although he himself was looking very secular, and he just bought a car. And there was something with the insurance, because the lady was speaking about demonstrations, and I'm like, well, are there demonstrations? And then she told me, no, 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 no. There are insurance clauses for demonstrations right now. So they were buying a new car and they were working on the insurance. Um, so, by the way, after the Me Too, they had clauses for litigation for those things. Um, Jean-Claude Van Damme literally said in one of his interviews, he was working with Menachem Golan, they were saving money for the litigations because they were raping people. And Jean-Claude Van Damme was himself harassed when he was doing massages and stuff. So, weird, but as far as money changes hands, and there are commissions for every transactions, and that causes transactions. Okay, it causes litigation, it causes transaction, it, it moves the money around, and that's another venue for money being moving around. And as per the insurance, it's kind of like, well, it's a new product. So this is, you see, Mars, Uranus, and Civil War clock is definitely abolitionist time. Now, the difference between abolitionists to abolishing of slavery, abolitionists wanted to abolish slavery all over the world. And I think people can infer my position around that. Um, so, but definitely Mars Uranus is going to get to the nitty gritty of it. Okay, think about the Me Too. Me Too did a great cultural upheaval. Um, and then the insurance companies were like, okay, then we'll have another product in the insurance, another clause in the insurance. Same with revolutions, another clause in the insurance for people who run over protesters with their car. Okay, I'm just. And yet, a lot of the revolutions are also organized by people who rubbed shoulders with Epstein because they need the media. Um, calling to all kinds of calls regarding current prime minister in what's supposed to be democratic regime, and a lot of activities that of the things that I said no to that are happening also in those spheres and in any sphere. So Mars Uranus is definitely opening synodic cycle, and is gonna get us to the bolicolies of Civil War clock. Okay, the bolicolies are the last bonds and stocks to fall, because this is where the banks and even the insurance company insure their own employees in life insurances and so on and so forth. So Mars Uranus is going to be the bolicolies of Civil War clock. Um, and with Sedna, it's down touch to the minerals. So quite potent July. Neptune going retrograde. Venus ingresses to Virgo. Sun conjoins Mercury at 20 degrees Cancer. And a new moon in Cancer, 21 degrees. We're going to have full moon in Aquarius, 6 degrees. So Mercury turns direct, Saturn turns retrograde. And other than the context, which is Jupiter in Leo, Saturn in Aries, and the Mars-Uranus-Saturn conjunction. Yes, we have Mercury turning direct, Saturn going retrograde in middle decan of Aries, 14 degrees. However, other than that, we simply have the lunations. And 21 degrees Cancer, not really squaring Saturn anymore, and not really making an aspect to anything. So this is new moon in Cancer, the moon is in Cancer. Venus squares Uranus in the background. Mercury is retrograde in 19 degrees Cancer. The moon is ruling over that Mercury, which rules over Mars on Aldebaran. And Mars on Aldebaran is quite a transit. Okay, happens every 2 years and 2 months, around 2 years and 2 months. But this time it's after the opening synodic cycle with Uranus. So I'm going to be paying very close attention to what happens with Mars in Aldebaran. Okay, and we want to make the most of Mars in Aldebaran, and we want to prevent the Pyrrhus wind as much as we can, because Uranus is going to turn things over when it comes to, okay, Mars in Aldebaran can absolutely be a Pyrrhus wind. Those of you who are doing mergers and acquisitions in real estate, wealth consolidation on minerals, mining companies, and the weapon industry associated, I would not do that without the mindset of being abolitionist globally. We're no longer in the previous Pluto in Aquarius, okay? There are global organizations right now that are open. The world is having world policies. Having a win right now can be a Pyrrhus win, because your company's win with this Mars in Aldebaran can be the shilumim that you pay for things that began even before the merging and acquisitions. Okay, if you buy a company, okay, let's say I buy Standard Oil, with the oil refineries and with, I don't know, the company that mines the minerals. Okay? If I buy this today, compete, and that I win today, I won, okay, today. If I buy this company with the mindset that I'm going to make a reformation, that each and every, from the miners of the minerals to the refineries to everything, is going to be full-blown zero ritual abuse, zero rape, okay, in spirit and in matter, Gen Z friendly company, by all origins, okay, then if you have that mindset, I'm going to tell you, go ahead with that. Go ahead with that, because you would probably have the blessing of Aldebaran. I don't know how to enforce that. Okay, I'm saying that. It's a good idea. I don't know how to enforce that. But if you have this mindset, good idea, good for you. If you don't have this mindset, you might be the one paying all the shilumim later. Now, Standard Oil, when they gave women rights and they say, oh, we're going to tax women too, they knew women are not going to make, even if they make the same salary as a man, okay? They knew it's just cutting the resource in half. They knew it. Once the men had to provide, now the men and the women had to provide. They expected easier, not harder. They knew it. And then we can have inflation as before. They knew they're not really making the taxation that they thought to be making with the marginal profit. It was also the way to do that, because if Adolf Hitler tried to get all the women back to the kitchen and have the jobs for the men so that he can so-called create jobs, which we understand is balonies, right? He didn't really do anything by that. Okay, I'm not going to talk about Mussolini. But no, seriously, PM Meloni, the world is going to. I'm gonna get. The world needs to cut me some slack because I'm going to get the backlash for shout out to Prime Minister Meloni when she said she she thinks Benito Mussolini was a good leader. Okay. I gave shout out because she comes to deal with the issue of pedophilia heads on. Okay, not living in a fantasy world that it would be legalized, um, and trying to be pragmatic and find a solution that will not perpetuate that. And she sees the future. She sees what's up. She okay. So, but definitely the fact that I give this shout out is going to expose me to, hey, it's that person that said that the person that said Benito Mussolini was a good person, a good leader. It's that astrologer, and I'm like, hey, I have to tackle that in the open now. So I'm not going to talk about Mussolini. I don't know what was the economy of Mussolini. Um, Definitely there was a desire to unify Italy, um, and definitely it was, what are cantons but crime organizations that needed to work together. And it's not just to Italy. I mean, Bismarck wanted to unify Prussia. So um, unification, unity is it's challenging. Global policies, um, and so back to this new moon. Yes, we're going to have Mars and Aldebaran. Um, be very careful with the mergers and acquisitions that you do, because abolitionist is going to be a real reality. People are going to have to deal with abolitionism not as an ideology. Neptune in Aries is when, yes, there was colonialism, but what did colonialism cause? Eventually, the abolition of slavery. Okay, why? Because the origins, the nations, the First Nations, and um, um, the indigenous of any region had to deal with their own slavery. Up until now, there are people in various African countries that say white people did not invent slavery, but they definitely were the first to call to abolish it. I don't know if they were the first to call to abolish it, but those are not just, oh, it's colonialism o'clock, it's Vogue time, it's it's Neptune time. It's where if you don't abolish slavery, there will be colonialism. Okay, same for example, if Judaic traditions will not abolish trafficking and usury, they will have inquisition. But if Christianity will not abolish trafficking and ritual abuse, then they will have all kinds of, yes, not so Christian movements. Okay, in the Second World War, we saw it as the age of ideology. Um, but when it comes to the money line, what greater thing than to have a human rights revolution for the reputation of a global company? And yet we need human rights. So this is the new moon, and the full moon is going to be in Aquarius, which means the sun is 6 degrees Leo and the moon is right crossing Pluto. So we're going to have a haze moon for the full moon. And the sun is conjoining Jupiter. So big July. July is big month. This full moon is going to be very big. And degree 6 is degree of Virgo. big revelations, big exposures, big, it's the last call before Pluto will retrograde and go over the 6th degree for the first time. So Mercury direct, Mars in Gemini, squaring Venus in the background, Lilith 24 degrees, Sagittarius. Again, as of June, I think even end of May, Lilith enters the Mula Nakshatra, which is the billionaire nakshatra, but it's basically the grand transmutation nakshatra. And we're gonna have sexually sovereign billionaire women. Okay, that's sexually sovereign. But definitely, yeah. I don't know, Falcon. We have a bisextile with Neptune and Uranus. Neptune is retrograde, Pluto is retrograde, Uranus is direct. Bisextile, which means that the revelations of this full moon are very protected. Probably some unexpected information leak that we can predict. That we can predict that there would be unexpected information leak. People are going to be wondering about the origin of the name because Neptune is 4 degrees, or if it's AI or not AI. Mars in Gemini, Mercury in Cancer. Big revelation, big discoveries, but also it's still the Sun and Jupiter are separating from opposition to Pluto. So the big power confrontation has happened, but there is a revelation upon the release. So we might be in a bit of delay discovering about the confrontation that was when the Sun and Jupiter opposed Pluto. Yes, I think we got the month of July pretty much covered. Mars as I speak. And a fummel out. Midheaven. Very big month. Not an eclipse month, but very big, very potent, even by the structure. Okay? Even by Jupiter in Leo and Saturn in Aries. Saturn going retrograde will definitely be important because we are going to be rethinking all the things that we will have done by then. Rethinking restrictions, rethinking regulations, rethinking whether something stands the test of time. Okay, Saturn in Aries builds foundations, and we're going to be revising the foundations. Which is already beginning to happen. Okay, there are going to be a lot of new countries. Whether 2026, 2027, a lot of new countries, a lot of countries are going to say, hey, I want sovereignty from just the thinking that, wait a second, it was Thailand that was a part of those who blackmailed Israel to do a genocide in Gaza because the Israelis milieu would go to rape girls in Thailand. And that would, of course, be on tape. And then they said, oh, we don't want Israelis, we don't want Israelis. Just that structural eureka. Because it's very comfortable to say, oh, we stand with Palestine, but extort Israel to do a genocide in Palestine. Um, okay, when we think about new sovereign countries, we have to think sovereign from extortion codes, sovereignty over either rare earth minerals or the refinery, preferably both, and how to defend that, of course, um, and the fact that we would be sitting in the room with the people that weren't so sovereign in the face of extortion. A lot of there's a lot of things to think about, things to revise, and then it is also the question of, do we actually need that new thing? Because if we change that in the existing world, do we actually need that new thing? And a lot of enterprises um, and entrepreneurship is done with that mindset. Okay, one of the things that I definitely do, even in my life, is, oh, wait a second, that means I have a patent. Oh, wait a second, that means I have a new idea. If somebody's going to grab that new idea, if somebody's going to be serious about doing that, then suddenly the market will have to adjust. And so I did not invent this technique. Um, and it's not even a technique. It's basically people are looking for, if necessity is the mother of invention, and then people have those inventions and say, wait a second, we can have an economy without extortion calls. Oh, wait a second, we can have, particularly after Uranus in Taurus, okay? Oh, wait a second, that thing is actually interfering with our relationship, with our intimate life, and so on and so forth. And so what was considered an entry ticket to becomes something that's actually preventing, and people didn't think before that they can have an entry ticket without doing those things. So now everybody is excited, and um, and that definitely stirs up reformations to preserve the previous nation societies, conglomerates, and so on and so forth. Okay, Aries talks about what we do want, and Saturn going through the retrograde phase might say, wait a second, oh, we can have it here. Then we're going to ask, okay, why didn't we have that before? And there are going to be a lot of innovations that are going to simply be, yeah, I'm going to buy the coffee here and not there, because why did it take you so long to abolish slavery? Why did it take you so long for the barista to have a chair? Why did it take you so long? And why did it take you so long to abolish, trafficking rings and so on and so forth? And this is, however, if there is a good answer to that, such as, hey, we were really, really trying to do that, but we had an oath of silence, people were tortured, we had to meet our non-erotic needs in some way that is not forcing us back into trafficking. Okay, those answers can absolutely preserve once there is an action to say, hey, once we could, the minute we could break the vow, break the oath, and get away with that, then we didn't want to be with those Peter rings anymore. Okay, there is a lot that can be, and this is why understanding, or whether it's The Quest for Love by Anneke Lucas, or the writings of Maria Antoinetta Bellanova, that talks about basically how babies that were separated at birth, even if they didn't grow up into cloning lineage or anything like that, could have erotization of needs that are simply to be held as a baby. But it would come as a very weird sexual fantasy that they seem like they cannot meet anywhere and have a lot of shame around. And sometimes those fantasies would be lethal because they were raped, and sometimes people died during that, and then they could develop fantasies of feeling only safe with a dead person. Okay, all those really, really weird things that nobody could talk about um, are probably going to be talked about, simply because people are going to need something to opt out, where in the places where legalization does not cover, and prohibition does not prevent, there is conversation and organic structural change that is authentic, an authentic wish to live better, to love, and so on and so forth. So when people talk about abolition of slavery, what they're actually talking about is the sovereign life. Um, I think that sparks July. Lilith has ingress to royal degree 5, and the moon is square in Lilith. So this is a degree where we definitely think about Lilith themes regarding monarchy and religion and freedom. Okay, what do we call sexual freedom? Not just as women. There were even, I think Maria Antoinetta Belanova wrote about the fact that many nuns were ritually tortured and abused, and that, of course, creates ritual abuse within the clergy, within the places that people often run away to when they escape molestation or rape or violence. Um, and yet those conversations, difficult as they are points of interference to begin to change what we thought was unimaginable to change. And it was done before, but now it's done on an even bigger scale.